Hello, everyone, and welcome in to Red Cedar Radar. My name is Brad, and I'm joined, obviously, as always, with my co-host, Sydney. How goes it? What goes on? It's a pretty sunny day out in Lansing, Michigan, so that's good, right, Sydney? Right?
Yeah, it's been pretty nice over the past couple of days. We had that, snowstorm that they said was going to get crazy, and it didn't really get crazy. Then the next day it was, sunny and 45, so spring is coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, back down in Detroit, they had a couple. It was wild, actually. What, there was thunder in the snow or something like that. Oh my god, no, thank you. Never seen thunder snow before, but here we are in 2023. We finally get it. So Michigan State has been playing basketball. It's something that I have not been keeping the most track of, I'll admit. It's terrible. Blame me all you want. I'm so sorry. I've been keeping up with Michigan State's hockey season and their finagle with trying to get or elevate themselves to a tournament position, which has kind of proven to be a little difficult. And then this time of year also is when racing season comes in, so I get too invested into that. And really, you know how a lot of people with sports, their favorite time of the year is fall? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry. Mine is spring. Absolutely, hands down, because that is when the NHL season's wrapping up. That's when you get, March Madness. Mm-hmm. That's when I think especially, even with, football, you get to see, some of the early recruits that come into campus early on, and you get to see them maybe perform in spring game, right? Yep. Or, things like that. So it's just kind of a culmination of all the sports at the same time, except for the NFL, obviously. And even if you're a racing fan, that's when all the races start to ramp up. So, it's a crazy time. So I've been struggling to find a way to pay attention to everything, and sometimes that means watching the NHL over Michigan State basketball. I'm so sorry.
Well,
but,
lucky for you,
here we are.
I prioritize nothing else over watching Michigan State basketball, so I'm here to kind of fill in those gaps.
Perfect. I guess fill me in. What's been going on with MSU, because it seems like this season there's been a lot of overreactions on Twitter. We spoke with Paul last week about where Michigan State could go and what where they could really solidify their place. This year is also weird, right? Because there's not other than Purdue, the Big Ten doesn't really have any standout. There's a 6-way tie or something like that in second place, right?
Yeah, it's kind of just Purdue up at the top, and then there's just a smush of everyone else, and then there's a couple at the bottom, like Minnesota, Ohio State's kind of low. So there are some lower ones, but a lot of the teams are really smushed in that middle, kind of like you said, area. Yeah. Yeah,
and that's tough. I think that the interesting thing, I guess, when I think about it, when I put this season for Michigan State into perspective, right? You look at the record, you look at what they've sort of accomplished this season, which, fans, Michigan State is a very lucky program to have a coach who is competent in the sense that, a bad season is what you're seeing right now. Right? You're seeing the worst that Michigan State could go through. And it hasn't been bad, right? There have been some worse seasons, some bad, but obviously a lot of better seasons. Yeah. But look at Michigan. They are in a second place tie right now, and they have losses so bad where the question of them getting into the NCAA tournament is so much lower, right? So that's obviously a big issue for them. Michigan State doesn't seem to have that problem.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that Michigan is in a tie for second place after everything that they have done so badly at this season. But that kind of just goes back to that like middle way tie, like we were talking about. When everything gets scrunched up in the middle like that, weird things can kind of like squeak out at the end. Like, sorry, my dog's barking, but things can squeak out at the end, like Michigan getting a higher seeding, which is crazy. And based off the season, if you're just looking at like overall how they've played, I wouldn't say they deserve to be a second seed, but because of the kind of lockjam in the middle, that's where they ended up.
And that's interesting too. I mean, I think not to pivot, because we'll get into sort of where Michigan State's going as far as hockey is concerned, because I'll get into a whole thing with that. But like in hockey, it's very similar. So like in college basketball, you have the net rankings, right? So like your I mean, everyone knows what the net rankings are, right? You beat a team that's good, right? So like you beat say Gonzaga's undefeated, right? You beat Gonzaga. That's a very good win, right? That's awesome. Okay, you lose to them though. You're not really backtracking very much, right? So like it's not seen as terrible. If that's why with Michigan State playing Minnesota, like that game never happened. And so for Michigan State, it's like, that game, yeah, that's going to be an easy win. Michigan State should easily win that game. Nobody should lose to Minnesota. But at the same time, not, if they were to play that game, like if that means they had to ramp up their schedule just to fit that game in, what's that worth? Because then they're going to be exhausted for other games that they play, whereas maybe that rest would be meaningful to them. So like how much is really that win? How is that worth it? You know what I mean? So hockey does a similar thing, right? Where they have the pairwise rankings, and like it's interesting because Penn State, so there's 7 Big Ten teams, and so Notre Dame became a Big Ten team in 2017. But basically speaking, Penn State is a lock to make it into the NCAA tournament because of where they played a garbage non-conference schedule. And they're going to make it in based on the rankings and where they are. But they're 6th in the Big Ten. Michigan State and Notre Dame finished ahead of them. Yet Penn State is the team that has the lock for the tournament. You know what I'm saying? Like I guess it's weird. Yeah. It's this weird dynamic where, depending on, I guess, where, how the season shakes out, the different, how we perceive a non-conference loss and a non-conference win, just things like that. So I don't know. It's just, I guess, baffling to me all the time. Like again, like Michigan State and Michigan have like the same conference record, but Michigan State is kind of a, they're gonna get in, but Michigan, it's like, will they? Won't they?
Yeah. I want to circle back to something that you said when you were talking about like Minnesota and that game not getting rescheduled and everything. There was an option for Rutgers to kind of shuffle some things around and maybe be able to fit MSU in the Minnesota game in, because Rutgers could kind of change things around. Rutgers kind of was like, no, we're not doing that. And then Minnesota came in and beat the crap out of them by 1 point, but still beat the crap out of them because Minnesota has had kind of a poor year. So I just it's funny how things at the end of the season always shake out. As we were talking about, Penn State and hockey and Michigan and basketball, it's kind of like confusing. And in the other ways, it's kind of a little bit like, oh, well, maybe they deserve that to happen. So, this is an exciting time of year because you kind of see things shake out in different ways. And that was one thing that I kind of thought, that's an end of the year thing that they probably didn't want to happen.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Probably. I know Izzo, like always, is the type of person who wants to reschedule games.
I mean, of course, there was always the question, and we talked about this with Paul, but like there was always that question of like, what if Minnesota came in and like beat us? We don't want that. And they showed that they could, against Rutgers, so maybe we avoided something there. But I do think Izzo was probably pushing to reschedule that. But as you mentioned, like, would it have been worth it to put the players under that extra strain of like, not having as much rest between games as you go into tournament time where like you get no rest ever? So it worked out the way it was supposed to, but
Yeah, I mean, you
unfortunate.
saw what happened with the schedule earlier in the season, right? Like Michigan State went through that gauntlet. Was it because Michigan State was a bad team? No, and they had injuries and stuff
Right,
that they were
right.
dealing with as well. But you know what I mean? Like, you put a team through that sort of mess, and Izzo said he wouldn't do it again. With the scheduling and things like that. And I'm like, literally, you're about to sign up for it. Like, yeah, the schedule was already made, and you would like to make that game up if you could. But, like, in a way, Izzo is literally doing that same thing again. You know what I mean? I mean, the travel's not the same because Michigan State would be staying at home for that game. But at the same time, like, yeah, you're putting your players through a situation where they would have to play, X amount of games in X amount of days.
Yeah. I'm sure that went into the, discussion of rescheduling or not. I think there was a lot of emotion behind it in many different ways, so I'm sure that was also a part of the conversation. I feel like Izzo is a logical guy, and even though I imagine, like you said, he is the type of guy that wants to reschedule everything because he wants to play, he wants his team to play, but I'm sure that he recognized that, you don't want a repeat of all those injuries and everything heading into the most important tournaments, of the end of the year.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing, though, is I guess just like that game. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know that it would be worth it. Like,
no, I don't think
with
so.
for seeding purposes, I guess. You know what I mean?
No, I don't think so either. Speaking of seeding, are you okay to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so since we talked with Paul last, we didn't really get into like the nitty gritty of any games. We kind of just looked ahead to tournament time, and kind of he gave his predictions based off the work that he does. I really quickly want to recap the Nebraska game. So, did you watch that game, Brad?
No.
Okay.
I didn't get a
all right.
chance
Well,
to.
let me set the scene
when
for
was
you.
that? When was that one?
That was, let me tell you, the 28th, February 28th. So a little while ago. A Tuesday,
that was
I think.
a while ago, wasn't it? Ooh,
so
right. Yeah.
We never talked about that one because we talked with Paul and all that stuff. So let me set the scene for you. MSU started off like a shipwreck. It was terrible. I was screaming at the TV. I had to take a cold shower at halftime because I was so worked up. They played like they didn't even get off the bus at Nebraska, and Fred Hoiberg's team literally was like putting it to them no other. Absolutely punching us all in the face, me included. So I took my cold shower at halftime. I really relaxed. And then they came back out in the second half like a completely different team. I'm sure Izzo had lots of things to say to them. I can't even imagine what that locker room was like. But they came out and they played with, I want to say like grit, but it was more than grit. It was like mental fortitude, and like they pushed through kind of the defeat in the first half, and it was a defeat because like they had no chance of coming back, it seemed. So that gave me a different perspective about the team. The first half I kind of was like, it's done, we're washed, it's over. And I really try hard to not feel that way. I try to err on the positive side of things, but I was scared, and the way that they came out in the second half makes me really hopeful for tournament time.
So, like, how do you think that sort of the adversity that's affected this team, like, how deep do you think MSU will go?
It's so hard to tell because tournament time always is like that. You never know. And I really don't like to make predictions because I don't like bad juju, but the way that they played in that second half proves to me that they could overcome any obstacle. And that's a positive point in my eyes. Without, giving too specific of predictions, because I don't like that, that second half shows that they are a team that can put pieces back together and win games solidly if things aren't going right, right away at the tip.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, to me, and I've always sort of been of this opinion, but to me it seems like Michigan State needs some seeding luck, right? Like you need to have some sort of I mean every team goes through that, right? Like
there's
like
always a
Michigan State
variable
it didn't help them last year when they got sort of stuck in the whole thing where like if you win this game you're going to play Duke next round.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that doesn't help you, right?
Right.
So I mean some teams get luckier than others and
Well,
some
and there's
games
always,
are more winnable.
Yeah, right. There's always a little bit of that, like, I don't know what they call it. It's not like they add a little flavor to the tournament where they put, like, drama in like that, where they put us against Duke because they knew it was Coach K's last year. And, like, that gets them more views and,
I guess it's the same thing where people assume that like the college football playoff rather than rank simply the best 4 teams in the field. Instead, they go out and they put like they're not going to put Alabama against Georgia in round 1. Right. They're going to put Alabama and Georgia on the opposite side and then have them meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Or same thing with Michigan, Ohio State. Like they weren't going to put Michigan and Ohio State in the middle. Or I mean, in the same round.
They add a little drama to it, of course. And,
right.
As a fan, I love that. So we will see kind of what shakes out this year. But just circling back, I feel like based off what I saw in Nebraska, I am hopeful that this team has the pieces put together that they need to go as far as possible in the tournament. And that kind of leads... Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask if you've been paying too much attention to like college basketball from a national landscape, because I will sporadically, I guess. I'm not like I know Paul will have 4 screens up, right?
Yeah,
where he'll be
right,
watching like 4 different games all at the same time, and the ones that are on ESPN and all that and whatever.
Yeah.
I'll tend to do that sporadically. Like if a game's on, I'll check it out. Things like that. What have you heard nationally? Like who are some good teams? I know obviously Purdue's good, but just outside the Big Ten, I know Tennessee was on a roll for a while. Alabama was on a roll for a while.
I know that Houston is a favorite. I recently watched, I don't know, I think it was some guys on ESPN putting together what they would say as their, like, 1 seeds right now. And to be honest, like, they didn't all match. They had quite a range of different teams mixed in there. But I think a constant in all of them, if I'm remembering right, was Houston. Let me look here. Let me pull this up.
I know
Because like you said, I've watched... And I've picked out some important games that I like sat down and watched, but it's kind of like a crapshoot with some of the teams this year, like teams that are historically consistently good. Like yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I watched Duke and North Carolina play, and it was neither of them are ranked, and it was just kind of like, like it's not the Duke and North Carolina that you usually hear about and see. So the rankings are, as of right now, Houston, Alabama, Kansas, UCLA, Purdue at a 5th seed, then Marquette, Baylor, Arizona, Texas, and Gonzaga. That's the top 10.
That's like the poll?
That is, the AP top 25.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So... Because I'm looking, so I'm just going to give you a quick rundown, right?
Okay.
So I'm looking at the 68-team bracket according to ESPN's bracketology,
Perfect.
right? And they kind of outline it really well.
Yeah.
They actually give out the last team in is Penn State. The first team, the first team out is Utah State, and Michigan's actually in the next 4 out right now.
Okay.
Kansas, Alabama, UCLA, and Houston are all number 1 seeds according to ESPN's bracketology. But so something that, and Purdue would be where, like probably a 2.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
looking.
what I've seen.
Yep. They'd be a 2. They would face Vermont, according to ESPN scenario.
Okay.
They would face Vermont in the first round. Okay. And side note, and I just wanna go off on a mini run real quick because I read some. So you know how Michigan State's on what, like a 25-year consecutive NCAA tournaments, going to be 26 this year. Well, someone, presumably a Michigan fan, was saying that a quote first 4 game doesn't count as a doesn't count as a bid, right? Because you got to play into the tournament. And I'm like, yeah, technically, but I mean, it is the tournament. Like, it is literally the tournament, because so the way that the bracket works, right? You win your conference and you go to the tournament, correct? Like, if all conference winners go to the tournament.
Yeah.
So you get all these people that get in based on automatic qualifiers. So right now, again, according to ESPN's own bracketology, like, some of these first 4 teams are and happen to be conference winners. Like, for example, Southeast Missouri State or Florida Dominion. Like, both of them are projected to win their own conferences and get in as a 16 seed playing in the first 4 game against each other. You know what I mean? Like, that is literally. I just wanted to go off on a tangent. And I guess it just bugged me when that came out on a technicality.
And you know why they're saying that is because they don't like Izzo and they don't like that whole thing. But I would say, think about some of those smaller schools that get in, and have to play in. I would say that is not any less of being in the tournament than anyone else. For those schools, it's huge. And so, then to change it up for a bigger school like MSU, you're just changing up your mindset because you don't like the school. I would say that counts no matter what, because just like you said, it's the tournament. It's part of the tournament. It's built like that for a reason. So, there's no question in my mind whether or not MSU was in that situation or had been in that situation before. I would still think that it's part of the tournament because, I'm not a jerk, and those teams, worked hard to get to that point also.
So I did want to ask you a question real quick, just real quick. So, I don't know if you knew this, but so the NCAA Transformation Committee wants to expand the March Madness field. I don't know how you would feel about that. I just wanted to, question.
I think we talked about this a long, long time ago, maybe in one of our first episodes. I feel like from a fan standpoint, I would love that because I love March Madness and I love watching all the basketball that I can get my hands on. That's what I've been doing all day today, watching Big Ten teams or whatever. I don't know. Would that decrease the specialness of getting into the tournament if there's just way more bids and way more teams? So I'm kind of torn.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the idea. So, and I'm not 100% sure on the specifics. I actually have an article pulled up because I've actually specifically been following this because of college hockey and the way that it's because it's not just basketball that it's going to happen to. It's going to happen to every single sport. College basketball is obviously just the one that people are talking about. Yeah. So, basically, if anybody's listening that doesn't actually know this yet, back earlier in the year or last year-ish, there was a 40-page report released, I believe, the week of January 3rd, that was produced and released to selected media members. The report will go to the Division I Board of Directors for consideration at the 2023 NCAA Convention in San Antonio, which I guess already happened in January. I'm not actually sure if anything came about this because I didn't see where specifically this recommendation went. The issue, though, was that they wanted to incorporate more teams into the NCAA postseason championships. So, for example, Right now, 68 teams, right? So you have 64 that make it into the actual first round, and then the first 4 you have 68 total teams.
68.
That make the NCAA March Madness tournament in both men's and women's basketball, which is about 19% of the sports members, right? So you have about 350 Division I basketball teams, okay? And the tournament, in order to reach a 25% mark, because that's what they want to do, is any sport that has more than like 200 some odd members would have to expand its tournament to reach to where 25% of the field is members, right? So 25% of your members make the tournament. Okay. So it basically you would have about 90 teams in the tournament. The most interesting thing, though, the way I guess it relates to college hockey is that in hockey, it's one of the most exclusive tournaments. So, for example, right now there are only 16 teams that make the tournament, and there are, I don't know, I think it's like 65-ish.
So a lot more than that.
Teams. So the only 16 make the tournament. So like, a team like Wisconsin, they're going to be better than most of the field, but like the top 16 is pretty hard to get into if your team's having a bad year. If you take this into consideration, though, the reason why it's really interesting is because sports that have lower member rates. So remember how I said that any sport that has a membership rate of like, I think it's like 200 and some teams, right, would need to expand to 25%. Well, with sports that don't have that many teams, it would expand to 50%.
Oh my gosh.
And you would have half the field be made up of like all these teams. So I guess what I'm getting at, though, is that you know how Michigan State hasn't made the NCAA tournament since 2012? Well, this specific measure would actually have put Michigan State in the field in most years.
And that's what I was thinking as you were talking about Big Ten basketball schools. Because there's some, you know, that don't make it in most times. I mean, you know, I'm not going to name names. But, like, I just wonder, like, that's so tough. What does that do? First of all, think of logistics of that. Planning, finding a place for everyone to play. First of all, crazy. Hockey probably even more so because there's less hockey arenas available.
Well, and I'm just like thinking. I mean, because the issue is that like in college, I mean, you have a situation where I feel like you are trending more towards a sport that wants to incorporate as much aspects about professional sports as possible, right? So you have a situation where like college football is expanding to a point where I think people are trying to make it a single trophy sport, and in that you sort of diminish the importance of a bowl championship, right? Or a bowl game, right? And I mean, you could argue that the bowl games aren't important anyways because people are just going to the NFL draft to begin with, you know what I mean? But like, and that's actually why there's an interesting proposal from some reporters that say that you should play bowl games at the beginning of the year. Everyone plays a bowl game. You get more exciting football that way, etc. But that's a whole interesting, different conversation. It's just, I guess it's just weird, you know, like people are you got traditionalists who are like, oh yeah, like, you know, if you expand the playoff, then you won't get into, like, the Rose Bowl won't mean anything, right? Yeah. And that's why the Rose Bowl was so against being a part of the new college football playoff to begin with, but then they were eventually persuaded with money, but
right.
You know, I mean, you know,
that usually
but
does
it's just but it's just interesting, right? Like imagine 50% of men's soccer teams would make the tournament.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like, I mean, you think about it, like if Central Michigan ever won the MAC or whatever in basketball, like, is Central Michigan better than Michigan most years? No, you know what I mean? Or Michigan State or
wonder,
teams
like,
maybe that don't make it in.
From like Paul's perspective, and we could never know this because this is speculation, but like, how much would those smaller teams really have much of an impact in the tournament? Like, I would want to know.
Yeah.
If all of those other teams got in, how many like Cinderella stories would we have, or would it just be them getting beat in the first round and we'd be back to the teams that we would have in the tournament anyways? I'm sure it would be probably a mix between both of those things, but would it even be worth it for those? I mean, it would be worth it for those teams to go because they would be able to get into the tournament and that brings revenue, and you know what I mean. But like, would they just be going to get their butts kicked by the bigger schools that would have been in the tournament anyways? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, the interesting thing, though, I mean, obviously people say that the NCAA always does this for money, yada, yada, yada. I know that partially, yes, that's true, right? Mm-hmm. I do think that there is something to be said, though, about the NCAA wanting some form of participation from these schools, right? So, like, because, I mean, think about it, right? So if you include 50% of the hockey teams, like, how much extra money is that really bringing in? You know what I mean? Like, it's like with some of these sports where the revenue is for a lot of schools, it's green. For some schools, it's black. You know what I mean? Like, some schools it's red. Like, it's a lot of the time it's not that much money. So I don't know where. You know, I mean, it depends on the school, right? But whereas with college basketball, then you have a situation where, like, there's a lot more money to be made there because of the ad revenue and things like that. Like, in like hockey, you know, you're not seeing games get nationally televised until you get into like the national championship or things like that.
Something else that popped into my mind as you were talking is, like, you know, a lot of these schools and us, we evaluate coaches' performances on like kind of the end of the year. I mean, how far can you make it in the tournament? That's how you get your name as a coach, you know. And if you're at a smaller school and you're able to make like an unprecedented run, you know, then you have bigger schools calling you up and saying, you know, we want you to come up, you know, join a bigger school. But we also evaluate it, you know, if you don't make the tournament, that looks badly on you and you can lose your job. And if you're underperforming, you know, that's kind of how that whole side of it works too. So then if we expand the field, what does that do for like a coach's evaluation? If you had kind of an year and you still make it into the tournament, will you keep your job longer? Will you be able to, you know, grow into those new kind of opportunities if there's more teams and it's less special? I don't know. That would be something else that I don't know much about, but that was something that I thought of.
Yeah, I think like in that case, it's almost like you would water down sort of the meaning of getting to the tournament, and at that point, like, people would be judged more so on right, because I mean, you think about it, like,
and all that stuff.
Because Minnesota, let's put it this way. Let's put it in a college basketball context, right? So you think about 90 teams make the tournament, right? Minnesota is not a top 90 school right now, even if you don't consider like I wouldn't put them in again Bradley University. You know what I mean? Like I would still put a lot of schools
Bradley
above
University because it shares your name.
I know, exactly. But like, I mean, they are projected to win their conferences here, but either way, like, you have these like schools that you know, again, are automatic qualifiers based on a number of different, you know, things or whatever, just because they win their conference, and then you have obviously all the other teams getting in on at-large bids, but like, if we put this in a college basketball context and we really place Minnesota like in the context, and we take however many conferences there are, if we do, like, if say there's 90 teams that make it in, and we have to subtract it by how many conferences there are, because that's how many at-large bids there would be, right? Minnesota doesn't crack the top on that number, right? Like, Minnesota doesn't actually make it in under those circumstances. So, like, that's, I guess, my point, though, is that, like, they're like, it's still pretty large field. I think that more teams would definitely get in. Like Michigan, for example, would never miss the tournament. They would never miss the tournament. Michigan State also would never miss the tournament. So if you're judging a coach based on like just them making the tournament, yeah, that's a little harder to do because like Juwan Howard, for example, like his seat's kind of getting warm in my opinion, like because of this season and the last couple seasons. Like his first season was very, very his first couple seasons were very, very good, right? Like you have, a coach that comes in and you're not really sure because you think the hire's a lot like Jim Harbaugh and it's just this whole thing. But now, I mean, if he's making the tournament at least, like,
yeah, and I'm thinking
because once you make the tournament, anything can happen.
Right. Well, and that's kind of like the exciting aspect of it. There might be more upsets. There might be more, twists and turns in it, which is what I like about it.
Right.
I think that would be great as far as revenue and like being a fan and, the production of it all. But I just don't know, like, yeah, will winning your conference mean less? Does regular season stuff mean less? Because it's like if we had an season, then we'll still get into the tournament. Will there be less heart in it, because you can kind of do okay and make it in?
And that's really interesting now that I think about it, I guess,
Yeah, things, and I don't think we talked this in depth about it before, but kind of as the season has gone on and like using Michigan and Minnesota as we know them now as examples of that, it kind of puts it into a better context of like if that was happening this year, what that would mean for those teams, which makes it even more interesting.
It's like some teams just have the recruiting power to where they will never finish below a certain point. Like some teams based on their recruiting footprint, you can't finish lower than a certain position. Right. You just can't because you just have all that talent. I mean, like if you let's put it in a context of like football, right? Like Alabama is never going to finish below number 20 in the league, right? I mean, in this modern era, right now, you're never going to see them below number 20. You're never going to see them fall out of the AP poll. I mean, unless something really catastrophically goes wrong or things happen over a certain period of years. Yeah. Like, you're just not going to see that. I mean, because Alabama has there's such a big force, Yeah. And, I mean, even, like, Clemson had a bad year once Trevor Lawrence left. Right, but they still came back and almost won the ACC. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think that some programs it's much rarer in football, but like in college basketball where you have so many games over a large sample size. The nice thing about a large sample size is that your schedule evens itself out after a while, and you can't get much worse than what you are.
Yeah. So. I just want to switch gears really quick to kind of get back to reviewing the games from before and talk about now what's kind of shaken out with the Big Ten tournament. So just to really quickly review, Michigan State just yesterday played Ohio State at home, led pretty much the whole game other than like right in the beginning. It got a little dicey at the end just because Ohio State cut the lead down to close at the end, but it was a nice win at home. The seniors got to kiss, Sparty's head in the middle, which I always live for. I love that. And, Chris Holtmann didn't throw a fit about the seniors kissing the Sparty head. So it was just a win all around for everyone. It was a good game. There was no moments, that I thought the team looked unprepared or not ready for that game. They looked like they kind of had a game plan, and there was nothing that I was super unimpressed by, which is how I always like to be heading into the Big Ten tournament. It was a solid win at home to kind of end the regular season. Here's a question for you. Do you think Tyson Walker or Malik Hall will come back? Because they have the ability to, if they wanted to. And I guess, and lump Joey Hauser into that. He would have to, I think, petition the Big Ten, but he also has the ability to come back because he sat that 1 year out.
I mean, it's hard to say, I guess. It's like, because I've never thought of this team right now. I've never thought of themselves having like too much in the way of like pro guys. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like guys who are gonna get to the NBA. And to be clear, like I am not going to sit here and say that I'm an NBA expert. You know,
Yeah.
but just from a general perspective, I can sit here and tell you that they don't have like star-studded talent. It's not like guys are saying yes to the or saying yes to coming back and saying no to the NBA or for whatever reason. You know what I mean? Like some guys would do to develop or whatever or they really are in it to win, a title or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is a good shooting team, or can be, or has, has the potential to be. But I just don't think that, like, I think there's a stat right now, and forgive me if I'm wrong, something about Michigan State being one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the country.
Yeah, they were saying something about that on the broadcast against when we played Nebraska. I don't know exact either, but I mean, based off, I was at the Ohio State game, so I don't know what they were saying during that, but based off how they played, I feel like that has to be somewhere along the lines of right. I don't know exact, but I mean think about how consistent Joey Hauser has been with his shooting. Him alone, not even factoring in the rest of the team. He's been super consistent with his shooting this year, much more consistent than years past. So if then you factor in everything else that has been going kind of in the right direction as far as shooting with Tyson Walker, Malik can have his games. I mean, I would say that's probably right.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess like if it's anyone's guess, is my thing. I'm not going to make any sort of grand assumptions or whatever. I mean, if like football is a sport that I'm much more acquainted with, and when Jalen Naylor left and Jaden Reed came back that one year, I thought it was actually going to be the opposite. Like I assumed that Jaden Reed was going to go to the NFL because he looked to be, that he had the NFL talent. Like I think that he absolutely could have done that. I thought that if anything, it was going to be Peyton Thorne's relationship that brought him back for another year.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that ended up being the case. But I definitely did not expect Jalen Naylor to leave for the NFL.
Yeah, actually,
so
now that you say it, I was surprised about that also.
So I guess that's my point. Is it's really anybody's guess. I also didn't I always knew that the upside to Max Christie was like pretty good. But I didn't expect him to leave so soon.
No.
After his freshman season. So,
Speaking
I don't know.
Jaden Reed, he was at the combine, and he ran a 4.45 40-yard dash, and with an eye infection. So he currently has one eye that's like swollen shut, and he ran that fast with one eye.
Yeah.
Us here at Spartans Illustrated and Red Cedar Radar just want to say, best of luck with your eye, Jaden. If you ever want to come on the podcast, you're welcome to come on.
Yeah, he is. My God, he's going to be a weapon for sure. I think that he's going to be one of the more underrated players, especially of rookie receivers, 100%. But anyway, so I don't know.
Yeah, let's finish up this conversation about basketball. Today, like I said, I've been watching a lot of basketball at home. And right before Brad and I recorded, it is looking like currently, right now, at 4:50 on March 5th, MSU, because Nebraska just beat Iowa, like not too long ago, we are seated as a 4 seed for the Big Ten tournament, which means we will play at 2:30 p.m. on Friday. We have to wait and see. Now, this will be a prediction for the future now, but when you guys are hearing this, you'll know the answer to this already. But if Rutgers wins over Northwestern, they play tonight at 7:30 p.m., we will be a 3 seed, and then we will play at 9 o'clock p.m. on Friday. So it's just kind of now deciding what time on Friday that we'll play. I am trying to go to the Big Ten tournament. I'm trying to figure out when to buy tickets.
Is it in Indy again this year?
It's in Chicago, which is exciting. I like Indy. I've been to Indy a couple times to watch basketball. I like that city, but it's exciting that it's in Chicago, so I'm trying to go. But I'm trying to wait to buy my...
being a lot more generous than I would be to Indianapolis.
I like it there. I don't know. Anyways,
of course,
moving on.
You would.
What do you mean I would? I watched Big Ten basketball there a couple times.
There's a cemetery in Indianapolis. Next time you're there, you have to go. Okay? I swear to God.
What an interesting recommendation.
I swear to God. That is my one travel recommendation I'll give you. Is
Folks,
there is a I can't remember what it's called. It's like something hill.
Brad.
Anyway, okay, listen. There's a cemetery you have to go. Do you know why you have to go? Main attraction.
No.
It is home to the most dead vice presidents in U.S. history.
What?
Like that cemetery has the most dead vice presidents.
Why that? Like, why Indy?
I don't know. Ask Indianapolis. I have no idea. But I'm just saying that these are and soon it'll have Mike Pence. So there you go.
That's bad. But
I'm just saying that these are all. It has the most dead vice presidents, people that never became president.
Wow.
Of any cemetery.
Well, that's just so strange. But next time I go, I will be sure to hit that up. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. You want to know specifically which presidents are buried there?
Yeah, you look that up, and I'm just going to keep talking about the Big Ten tournament for a second.
Perfect. You do that.
I love the Big Ten tournament. It's a great time. One of the times that I went and watched that, Juwan Howard and Maryland's old coach, who I can't remember the name, they ran at each other during the game, and they were going to fight. And that was an exhilarating experience to be in the stands and witness that. And another thing that happened when I went to the Big Ten tournament was we watched Michigan State had lost, which was devastating. I was down bad. It was terrible. Then we were like, oh, the women play very close to where our hotel was. And the tickets were like $12. Front row, Brad. We're like, okay, we're going. We watched Nia Clouden, who I'm a big fan of, and like the Michigan State Spartans in general, put the smackdown on Indiana in Indianapolis. It was electric. I waved, and Nia Clouden waved back, which is, again, one of my most proudest moments of my life. And it was exhilarating. And then we went across the street, and we went to a calzone restaurant, and we had calzones, and it was my birthday, so I had a dessert calzone for free.
Wow.
So
my goodness.
Indianapolis has a great review from me.
Wow.
Have you ever had a dessert calzone?
No, I haven't. I don't even know what that is.
It was basically like an apple pie stuffed inside a calzone. It was really good.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I tell you who was buried at the cemetery?
Yes, please do.
Real quick. So, it is called Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, right? It's in rural Indianapolis, right? It's at Crown Hill Cemetery.
Okay.
And it is a, what do they call it? A historic cemetery.
Makes sense.
It's privately owned, right? And it has the vice presidents Charles W. Fairbanks, Thomas A. Hendricks, and Thomas R. Marshall.
So just three.
Three vice presidents.
Are they buried near each other, or are they is it like a scavenger hunt? You have to find them.
No idea. But also, do you know who else is buried there? Robert Irsay, who used to own the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, Bob. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Of course. Love him. So then also the founder of, what did he find?
The founder of...
Oh, no, not founder, sorry. Inventor. Uh-huh. Howard Garnes. He was the inventor of Sudoku.
Wow.
Fun fact.
This place is star-studded.
I know.
I bet there's a line to get in every morning.
Yeah, of course.
To see this.
Probably. John Dillinger. He was a notorious bank robber in the 1930s.
He's buried right next to one of the vice presidents.
Probably. The founder of the Eli Lilly Company, which was rumored to be given out insulin for free. Oh. And that was false, obviously.
Okay.
You know.
Anyone else?
I don't know. A lot of people, but like nobody that I recognized.
Okay. I've been to a couple historic cemeteries, like a couple in Boston, where I think Benjamin Franklin and a couple other people are buried like out there. So I can get behind a historical cemetery. So
I've only been to like one cemetery in general, and that's like my mom's. So
yeah.
We're getting really deep on the podcast.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Maybe we'll fix that in post. We'll cut that out. Not really. So, are you ready?
That's kind of all I had to say about the Big Ten tournament. It's coming up very soon. If any of you that watch this are going to the Big Ten tournament, I might be there. And, Brad and I are pretty famous. So if you want to come up to me, I will be signing autographs.
Pictures are $5.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to cost you, but I'll do it. Bring in your Cassius Winston jerseys. I'll sign the back. So it's like a double,
How much do you think your autograph is worth?
I'm going to say a solid 50 cents. What would you say?
On the dollar?
Yeah. I'm only accepting 50-cent pieces, though. Not 2 quarters. So, if you're going to meet me there, come prepared with the funds that you'll need to get my autograph.
Right. Gotcha.
Pictures, though, $1. That's serious stuff. Because that's going to go on the internet and stay forever. And what if my eyes are closed? I, have to have the funds.
You got to be prepared for that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, but seriously, if you see me there, you can point me out and say, that's the girl that I listen to once a week, talk about MSU basketball. And everyone, Anyways, keep going. You continue. I'm just rambling on here, but
no, that's cool. So Michigan State's we're gearing up, and so we would have to wait to see who they would play, correct?
Yes. Yep. We have to find that out, and we will have to wait until after 7:30 tonight. Which by the time this episode airs, we will all know. But who wins between Rutgers and Northwestern? We want Rutgers to win so that we can get the 9. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. A higher seed, the 9 o'clock. Yeah, it does matter. We'll get the higher seed, the 9 o'clock game on Friday. That's what we would prefer. But
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Move on to hockey, right?
Yeah, in just a moment. First, obviously, I wanted to, reach out with our sponsor, Nudge Printing, which provides incredible MSU clothing, like the shirt that I'm wearing right now. So you can go to how do you say words? My goodness. www.nudgeprinting.com. And that's it. Yeah. They have a bunch of other stuff too. I hopefully will be buying my wife a Northern Michigan shirt at some point too, because they have that. They have all that licensed stuff. So if you got a friend or a family member that goes to said other university, except for the team down south, you can obviously go check it out.
Yeah, they're the business that Michigan State University partnered with to make their Spartan Strong shirts, which I think speaks to the quality of their shirts, with the trust of that very important job. I've been seeing updates on their Twitter. They've been pumping out Spartan Strong shirts
Lots of orders.
Nobody's business. So
tons of orders.
They do good work there, and I think they're good people. And that's what matters.
Good people. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So let's please transition into hockey real quick, because we have not discussed hockey for a minute.
Yeah, it has been.
If you haven't been keeping updates, maybe you could go ahead and check out one of our team members at Spartans Illustrated. Matt Sheehan runs a podcast at the Locked On Network. He does the Locked On Spartans podcast. I was on his show actually twice to discuss Michigan State hockey. And it was fun. We talked a little bit about recruiting. Once Michigan State's season's over, I'll have a full recruiting piece on where Michigan State's recruits are at, and which ones are coming in this season, and where we're at there. So very exciting stuff. But anyway, Michigan State is currently in the Big Ten tournament, and it is very exciting. So basically, where do I start? Where should I start? Basically speaking, Michigan State played Notre Dame this weekend, and it was very interesting, actually. Very interesting because Michigan State almost or could have played at home, which they missed out on. However, the problem with that is that while you were the only way for Michigan State to get home ice this weekend would have been to root for Michigan, which a lot of fans had a problem with.
Painful.
So you would need to have Michigan beat Notre Dame at least once in regulation last weekend, which Michigan did not do. In fact, Notre Dame won the first game in overtime and then won the second game in a shootout, or it was vice versa. Either way, there were two extra regulation losses by Michigan and two extra regulations wins by Notre Dame. The interesting thing, though, was that Wisconsin had to beat Penn State, and they did it somehow. Don't know how, but if Wisconsin wasn't able to, then Michigan State would have slid down to 6th place and had to play Ohio State, which nobody would have wanted to see.
Yeah.
So that would not have been fun. Not have been fun. But anyway, so long story short, Michigan State and Notre Dame had been playing a 3-game series this weekend. Friday's game, Michigan State lost 1-0. Then yesterday, Michigan State took a 4-2 victory, extending the series, and now we play in an hour at 6. Are you nervous? Because I was nervous yesterday.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. So the way that the Big Ten is structured, basically, like if I had to pick any team that I would want Michigan State, if I'm rooting for Michigan State, I would have wanted Michigan State to play Penn State, because Penn State, they're like a good team, but Michigan State is better than them. In my opinion. And remember how I said that Penn State is already a shoo-in for the tournament?
Yeah.
That's the problem that I'm having. Like, because Penn State's record is technically better, but Penn State played garbage opponents to begin the season. Like, it was just a non-conference schedule. Remember when Michigan football played against Colorado State and Hawaii and UConn? Like, two of those teams questioned the existence of having a football team.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you're playing teams that just suck. Penn State's non-conference schedule was worse than that in the hockey version of it. So, I don't think that Penn State's as good as people think they are. I think that Liam Soulier has been saving their season in goal, but somehow they kept their season alive too. Their game is actually just now beginning on Big Ten Plus. At this, again, we're recording this. It's 5 p.m. right now as I speak. And Penn State is playing Ohio State in Game 3. With Michigan beat Wisconsin twice this weekend. So now they will host a series next weekend, and Minnesota will host the other. Michigan State has to beat Notre Dame basically, or their season's over. That is where we are at. They're Notre Dame actually is in the same boat because, like I was saying with the net rankings in basketball, hockey has a similar version of that, and teams have to finish in the top 16 to make the tournament, but winning your conference automatically qualifies you, and at least one conference champion will not be in the top 16. So now the cutoff is like 14 because there's also an independent in the top top 16. So anyway, Michigan State's got to finish there.
So what's your prediction
they have to
for
win.
the game? Yeah, they have to win. What's your prediction for the game?
Oh my god. Stressing me out.
I know.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. The issue is that Michigan State matches up really well with Notre Dame. And, so Dylan St. Cyr is a really good goaltender for Michigan State. And so is Ryan Bischel for Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. I think that you're going to end up seeing another low-scoring game. I'm surprised that Michigan State scored 4 goals on Notre Dame yesterday. But if they can figure out how to score, I mean, that's it. That's really the only question about this game is whether Michigan State can score or not. Because if they could score, game over. Like, Notre Dame is averaging hardly over 2 goals a game. I mean, during the regular season, I have it actually pulled up. Yeah, during the regular season, Notre Dame averages 2.3 goals a game, which, isn't good. The average, you usually average in hockey is about 3. The closer you are to 3, the better. If you're over 3, then that's above average. Yeah. Generally speaking, from a general standpoint.
Yeah.
But Notre Dame has one of the worst offenses in the country. Michigan State definitely more middle of the road.
Okay.
And so again, like I said, if Michigan State could figure out how to score, it's pretty much game over.
It's a doable win. I mean, it's
a
absolutely,
possibility. 100%.
Yeah, okay.
I think that this is actually a better scenario for Michigan State than if they had to play Ohio State. I think that they would have definitely been able to beat Penn State, especially if the games were at home. But I mean, who knows? The best case scenario actually today, because didn't Penn State winning, wasn't that good for Michigan State basketball?
Yes, and the Penn State coach cried at the end of the game, and I love to see that stuff. So it was good in multiple ways. Anyways,
great.
Continue.
So what I'm saying though is that Penn State can also help Michigan State hockey today.
Wow.
Because the best case scenario for Michigan State is this. Michigan State wins their game against Notre Dame, right? Their game starts at 6. It's on FS2. And Penn State would need to defeat Ohio State, which they can do. I fully have confidence in them. If Penn State because in college hockey, the tournament field is reseeded after the first round.
Okay.
And so the Minnesota, who just got the bye week, would play the lowest seed.
Okay.
And Michigan would host the next team.
Okay.
And Penn State is a lower seed, so they would go play Minnesota, which nobody wants to do. And Michigan State would go play Michigan in Ann Arbor, which is 100% more winnable than going to Minnesota is.
Okay.
So if, again, like I said, if Penn State's able to win, Michigan State could go beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, and that would basically put them in the NCAA tournament field.
This
100%.
This is the time of the year where even though you're not a fan of those teams and if you need them to win, you're sitting in front of the TV hoping that Penn State will win more than you've ever hoped that Penn State is going to win before. And I kind of love that time of year because it's like your alliances kind of go out the window because whatever they do is going to benefit you. So I like that.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting stuff. And I mean Michigan State not getting into the NCAA tournament would be heartbreaking, but at the same time, there's tons of optimism and things to feel good about. So.
Definitely. But I know that if that was the end to such a good season that they've had, that would be disheartening. Maybe that would mean they'd come back next year stronger, but like you kind of alluded to, you don't want that to be the end of the season. After everything that they've done.
Not at all. I mean, I guess it's better, in retrospect, it's better than when last year when they lost 15 of 16.
Yeah, baby steps in the right direction. But I prefer, large jumps in the right direction. So, right. Anything else that you have to share about MSU hockey, Brad?
No, that's it. I mean, actually, there is one thing. I did want to say that, so... If anybody ever gets a chance, you have to watch this. So Carson Dorwart is literally incredible. Okay.
Okay.
So last night he shot he made a shot. It was a goal. Like, he scored, right? So he gets this puck from Daniel Russell. And I'm not even joking. He shot the puck on a 15-degree angle, and it went in.
What?
And I don't know where he aimed it. Like, I don't even know how that happened. But that was as good of a shot as I've seen any college player take. Like, pinpoint accuracy.
The way you describe that seems like it's impossible.
So Carson Dorwert's interesting because he wasn't highly recruited. He wasn't highly scouted. Adam Nightingale actually added him after after he was hired. He was one of the very few non-transfers that came to Michigan State as a transfer this year, right? Or not a transfer, I'm sorry. That came to Michigan State as a Nightingale recruit, right? Most of the other freshmen were all Cole recruits, right? Carson Dorwert was not, and he was an Adam Nightingale recruit. He comes in, and because I think the deal was that Michigan State needed more centers, like they just needed center depth because they didn't have enough guys that could take faceoffs. So they go out and get Dorwert, and they turn him into a superstar. He's like third on the team in points this year, second or third. So yeah.
Well, and I mean that's
all.
Well.
That's all I wanted to say.
That bodes well for Nightingale as a coach to bring in a guy like that and have him perform the way that he did in that specific play as an example. So that's another positive point to the season. Things are trending in the right direction, which is always what I like to see about MSU sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any personal news or anything you want to share, Brad?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
why do you want me to share some personal news?
No, I just wanted to wrap up the episode in case you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, that's it.
All right. Well, everyone, have a great rest of your day and happy March. We're glad to be here with you. We'll be covering lots more, hopefully more MSU hockey after tonight, and more MSU basketball and spring football coming soon. So stick around and listen to us about once a week.